Hello, everyone. I just want to thank Christine Bellamy for coming to Innovation this year. We're going to hear a really exciting talk from her now on how to deal with the future generations and technology. So thank you very much, Christine.
Thanks. Oh, wow. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah, that's good. I feel a bit impressive with this on, so you need to be careful. Thank you so much for making the time, first of all. This is a moment at the end of the day. You've had your lunch, so I've got the lunchtime, post-lunchtime slot, but I promise you we're going to talk through some great things today. I'm Chris Bellamy. I'm the Government Chief Product Officer here in the UK, which is an absolute wonderful job, right? If you could do any job in government, this is the job that you want to do. And fundamentally, what we do in GDS is we think completely about our users. That's what we do for a living. And we're the team that builds all those products that many of you in government build as well. Gov.uk, we're looking after the One Login programme. We're thinking about everything from pay to notify, the whole of the plethora of the Gov.uk family. But today we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about our users. We're going to spend a bit of time talking about the people that have these needs of government, and we've got a problem solving them. So today's session is all about ALF. So before we get to talk about ALF, I just want to do a little bit of a team experiment, if that's okay. Right, so I'm going to make you be interactive because you've all got full tummies. And I'm going to ask you all to just think about what you are or where you fit in your sort of age profile. It'd be interesting, first of all, if people know where they sit. Is it possible to just get lights up for a second? No, that's all right, because I can't see your faces. It'll just help me with an interaction. But don't worry, I can probably just about see you. Right, OK, let's have a moment then. Do we have any baby boomers in the room, right? So you were born, if you're a baby boomer, I don't think we'll have any. You were born between 1946 and 1964. No boomers? No? OK, that's pretty good. It's going to get bigger. Do we have any Generation X's, 1965 to 1980? Yeah, there's quite a few of us, isn't there? Listen, look at us. We're a bit amazing. Well done. Thank you for turning up. What about those noisy millenniums? I bet we've got loads of them, haven't we? Yes, there's loads of you. Fabulous. Right, OK. You're important because you're connected to ALF more than anybody. So hold that thought. And where's the Generation Zs? Oh, OK. You thought the world was yours, but it turns out there's somebody on your heels about to grab you. Right, OK. So, and have we got any Generation Alphas in the room? Born in the year 2010 to 2025? Not one. OK, I'm not surprised by that. Of course we haven't. Do you know where they are? They're all in the conference over the where, deciding which universities to go to. But, right, OK, so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about ALF. And we're calling him ALF for a moment, he, she, them. We're calling it on purpose because we want to make sure we don't talk about this alpha generation that nobody really understands. We've decided in GDS that we're giving our alphas a name, and that name is ALF. And if you work in GDS at the moment, you'll hear things like, does this product work for ALF? Have we thought about ALF? Because the one thing we know about new generations, they sort of tell us what to do next, don't they? And they bring everybody with them. They bring their parents, their loved ones, their friends. So if we don't look at this soon, we've got a problem. All right. So let's just place our alphas. Quite interestingly, quite a few of them are about to turn 18 in the next 3 years. So they are coming for us, right? So if you work in government, they are coming for us. And there is so little research about them that it's really difficult to place them in the conversation yet. And they're going to be the most important generation because they're going to be the biggest generation before you know it. And I'm just going to spend a little bit of time talking about them. But before we do that, there's this lovely little clip I want to show you, the power of YouTube, that really brings together what we need to think about in the ALF space, along with us as in government. So for a moment, we're going to go over to Australia. Here it is.
An oft-forgotten segment of our society, I speak of Generation Z, who will be playing a substantial role in the next election, and Generation Alpha, who will start to come of age the election after. It is for this reason that I shall now render the remainder of my statement using language they're familiar with. To the Sigmas of Australia, I say that this goofy-air government have been capping, not just now but for a long time. A few of you may remember when they said there'll be no phantom tax under the government I lead. They're capaholics. They're also yapaholics. They yap non-stop about how their cost of living measures are changing lives for all Australians. Just put the fries in the bag, little bro. They tell us that they're locked in on improving the housing situation in this country. They must have brain rot from watching too much Kai Cenat and forgot about their plans to ban social media for kids under 14. If that becomes law, you can forgo skull emoji all about watching Duke Dennis or catching a dub with the bros on 4.
Okay, right, okay. Just to get you thinking, I'm not saying it's all going to be about their language, but we are in a room full, as I think, of really important folk who want to understand this audience, when that gives us a snapshot about how they may talk in their daily lives. So, let's get in. We said there's no alphas and alphs in this room today. So when we were putting this together today, some of our lovely team, and Natalie's in the audience here today, thought about the best way we could demonstrate what they had to say. So we thought the best thing to do is we'll just bring them here for a moment. So we want to introduce you to a few of our alphs. And what we've asked them first of all is that what do adults need to understand about this generation? Now, for the researchers in the room, this is a sample. It's not a fully qualified, but it does give us a moment to start to do reflection. So let's have a look what our alphas say.
Yeah, it's really teenage experience now is like completely changed from like 10, 20 years ago. And a big part of that is COVID, social skills, and my mental health went like downhill.
All of us have different attributes. All of us are different people.
I think that like young people mess around a lot, I think, and that we don't really care about like our future. So I think that they should think that we do.
I wish they like actually took the time to understand like what is it like to be a teenager today. I feel like with phones, it's easy to say that young people are just kind of consumed in their phones and always like doom scrolling and stuff like that. But sometimes they might see that as an escape.
We all have different needs. Mental health is something that should be given much more attention by the government, because even though we're young, it doesn't mean we don't suffer.
Okay. So I just want to spend a few minutes looking at this generation. As I said right at the beginning, they're coming for us, and it's incredibly important we're ready for them. So let's just get into their world for a moment, if that's okay. Let's sort through a few bits of research that are out there and give it the sort of time to breathe and consider it. So we're going to do 3 things while we've got some time together today. We're going to talk about their world experience. We're then going to bring it into the world of online and think about how they're dealing in that space, because our job is to do digital government in GDS. And we're then going to think about it in real terms about are we ready for them and what it means to us in government. So let's just dip into their world for a second. This set of folk are going to live longer, but fundamentally they're going to face real big challenges. Some of these are the COVID kids, right? Some of you millennials in the room, you may have an ALF. A show of hands if anyone has an ALF. Okay, right, so they're in your lives. Now, I'm not for a moment going to show you research now that talks for every single ALF, but what it does do is start to give you a flavour of the sort of thing that's happening. If we look at the generation before, and you can see that's plotting into this generation as well, you can start to see that the financial situation in many of these children's homes is not in a great space. You can start to see that the numbers here in the UK are quite stark when it comes to child poverty. So if you're in the classroom and you're an ALF, there are going to be people, a number of people in your class that are living below the poverty line. This generation were really interrupted by COVID. And in doing so, 20% have not made it back fully to school. So our own Department of Education is tracking what is happening here and thinking about what that will mean as we go forward. There's been some excellent research done by Ofcom that starts to think about their place with tech. Now, you could say that would all be up, because the Alpha generation is called Alpha for one reason. It's because they're the generation that only knew about the smartphone. But it turns out that that isn't how it feels at home. And for many of you in this room know that when we sent everybody home in COVID, it didn't mean that they were set up to do school at home. And this is saying that that just hasn't got better. So fundamentally, although we think everyone is connected, they're connected sometimes in quite a superficial way. If we really go into the detail, and this isn't speaking for all of the cohort, but it's starting to show that we are really clearly seeing there's educational needs in this space, and that the ALFs, some of them are really struggling. And when you really start to go into it, and this is from the Mental Health of Children report from the NHS, they are starting to see that 1 in 5 is suffering in this area. Now, some of that may be that we are now actually reporting it for the first time, but fundamentally, this is a shift in behaviour. So you can see it in Generation Z, Z, if I'm being cool, but it's starting to get a little bit harder, a little bit more forceful, it just feels like the line's not going the other way, it's only going down. So when you put all this together, you've got a set of teens, some of them a bit younger than that yet, who are starting to think about how they interact with the world. I promise you, the whole of this presentation isn't going to be as depressing as this, right? But for a moment, you do need to get into their world. It's important. And I'm going to leave you on this particular one stat, and it's to do with loneliness, because although they are incredibly connected, they are disconnected. And there's something in that we really need to think about. So, half empty. This list of issues is there in the lives of our ALF cohort. ALFs can feel like this. Just want to have a moment for that, because when we saw this for the first time, there's a bit of you goes, what? What happened? But something else interesting is happening at the same time, and I just want to get you a little bit closer to them if I can. I just want to talk to you about when we then bring it and nail it down as this sort of online world experience. And this is quite interesting because you would expect it to say a very connected, totally engaged online presence, but the data says different. So let's take a bit of words in here. These are a team of digitally native kids, right? They're mums and dads and parents and grandparents, people who brought them up, or they were fundamentally already using this kit. So they were in a house already that thought about digital from the start. That was in their home when they started. They're probably their mums and dads. I'm looking at you millennials. You've probably, played PS1 with them, right? And now they've got a PS5 or whatever it is. But there's a bit of an underlying thing here, and I think we'll start by hearing again from our ALFs.
Definitely married.
Dating.
I put married. Dating.
Married.
It's complicated. Probably married, I'm not going to lie.
Definitely married.
Engaged.
Somewhere between dating and married, like engaged, but also complicated at the same time.
Because I was born into a generation that grew up with phones, that's just what I'm used to. I do everything on my phone. I do my coursework, make TikToks, talk to my friends, talk to my family.
My phone's constantly with me. I start off the day by listing the stuff I need to do on my phone. I'm recording this on my phone. I don't think since I bought this phone, a day has gone by where I haven't actually used it.
I do keep my phone close to me. It's a prized possession of mine.
My phone is my go-to for staying connected, learning and for entertainment, but then other times I just want to take a short break from it. I make social media algorithms focus more on positivity instead of pushing unrealistic beauty standards and negativity. I'm not always on my phone, but I can't live without my phone.
Although I'm on my phone a lot, sometimes it actually is mainly productive. Sometimes I'm on Teams on my phone, or I'm on ChatGPT, doing some research.
I think I enjoy time on my phone, but then it kind of sometimes stops me from being productive.
I use my phone a lot to revise, and I find it so much more easier than just picking up my laptop because my phone's so easily accessible.
Oh, okay. completely connected. We didn't tell them that they had to pick what they thought about the phone, but you've suddenly, this moment has happened. And I know you're all thinking in this room, well, I couldn't live without my phone. But the language here is a bit different, isn't it? This language is incredibly connected. They talk about it the way I talk about my dog Stan, right? It's just a real sort of emotional attachment to it. And it's important because we're not going to change that. We're not going to change that. So how do we work with it and how do we make that a positive outcome? Okay, let's keep going. So, a little bit of a stat for you. Stats are always good. The time in 2014, is that you lot, you millenniums? 14 a week. Look at the time in 2025. 7 to 8 hours a day on your phone. Oh my goodness. Like that's more than work, isn't it? That's more than school. Such a stat. But interestingly, in doing that, the rest of the world is getting a bit smaller. So although you've got a connected community that's probably speaking to friends and is connected heavily through networks, also what's left in the hours around it is diminishing. Right. One more little word from our ALFs.
So I actually checked this on my settings, and it was Spotify. It was my most used app by absolutely miles. I checked it was like a little bar chart, and Spotify was like up here, and all the other apps were like here. Like nothing can contend with Spotify for me.
Revising apps, question apps, TikTok, WhatsApp.
Yeah, Snapchat, TikTok. We like playing games.
TikTok to see what new trends are. Snapchat, message people, post on my story like relatable things about me. And Spotify, because I love listening to music.
It's important to smile and be happy and laugh. TikTok makes me laugh and do all that.
Mostly on social media, I'd say, and like keeping up with like sports and like it's not good, but like sucked into like just watching TV shows or managing work.
Most of my online time, I mostly spend on my coursework because in sixth form, coursework is just very, very, very long. If I'm not doing my coursework, I'll rather be on Instagram or TikTok. It's just good entertainment. Everything is on there. You can find out the latest trends, latest dances.
I definitely spend most of my time on TikTok, and honestly, that's where I've learned the most.
In my opinion, where you would find most teenagers is on Snapchat, so that's why I decided to use Snapchat a lot. That's why I spend most of my time with, is calling my friends, speaking to my friends, and even sometimes I speak to family members on Snapchat, because we've moved on from stuff like WhatsApp and text messages from when we went the last Snapchat, because of the age limit.
Okay, TikTok. There you go, here you go. Everyone's on TikTok. Of course, I'm sure some of you are saying, so far, I've been here for 15 minutes and I knew all that. But did you, right? Actually, did you see the sort of reality, the stark reality? You know, we are not engaging with these people where they are. And as they turn 18 and they become adults, 17, 18, and they have to interact with the state, we've got a problem brewing. All right, so we've done two things so far. We've got a flavour of the research that's out there that's starting to show what is happening with our ALFs. And we're starting to then sort of pull in the fact of what does that mean in their daily lives and their online experience. The world looks a bit like this. I've lost every single one of you, right? You're all glued now to the TikTok phone. Okay, so their world looks like this. It's busy, it's frantic, it's short form video, it's you're in, you're out. It moves fast while you move slow. I mean, it's a real sort of contrast of two things happening at the same time. So that's the negative bit done of this speech. Everything else is really positive. But something extra has happened with our ALF generation, something quite brilliant. Because they have lived in this environment for a few years, something really smart's happening. They're really good fast filterers. They can multitask like no generation before them, and they're able to really think about the context quickly and shift through it. How amazing. I want some of them to come and work for me tomorrow. This is a really great skill that has been learned. Yeah, absolutely. They need to think about how that fits with the interactions they're doing. So we can, as people who work in the civil service, we can do something to help them in that environment. But fundamentally, they can move quickly. They are shapeshifters. They are just amazing. So if we had 20 minutes of thinking about, oh my goodness, poor Alf, this turns out they are as smart as anything. They can move so fast. Put on top of this is that they really value the power of being a creator. They are creators themselves. They make things, they post things, they share things. They're not sort of constrained by that. They sort of see the world a bit differently. When they think about AI, they think about what it's going to give them. This is this real moment of thinking that being a creator is a really incredible thing to be. But yes, it comes with loads of risks. And the second part of it, you can see on this slide, is saying they need to really think about where they sit in that. They take their hobbies and they make them jobs. Right, if I could have done that when I was their age, oh my God, I tell you here, I'd be on decks. I'd be the oldest sort of DJ you could possibly hire for the night. I'd be so pleased. But fundamentally, this is happening with this generation. They're the creators. They are making money online. The fact that that number is so high that 1 in 5, as they come through to sort of early adulthood, are making money from it, superb, absolutely superb. But really importantly, the world for them can be tricky. And so I just want to leave with a little bit of a half empty, because we think all our sort of grannies fall for scams. This generation does too. And of all our little cohort that you've seen on the screen today, every single one of them had been scammed online. All right, so this creative, open generation, we've got to look out for them. So, we're here at a government conference, it turns out. I know that was quite interestingly. If you were sort of trying to target them for Netflix, you probably might decide what to do next. But we here today are here because we really are here with a purpose. We care. We want it to be better for Generation ALF. We want them to have their best lives. And we want to make sure that the state is there to support them at their time of need. But you've probably realized from what you've seen already, they have got needs. And these needs mean that they probably have more needs from the state than the generation before them. So when I said that we need to worry about ALF, we need to worry about ALF, because this complex set of individuals will need us. They may need us in a different way than the generation before us. So I just want to spend a little bit of time just coming into our world of government. This is the important bit, really, what we do about it, what we get up in the morning and we do. So let's have a moment to be in this space. One of the things I've not covered already is that generally this generation really bothers. They could actually all be civil servants, actually. They really bother. They are engaged. This is a brilliant stat that 1 in 5 of Gen Alphas have taken part in some sort of protest, whether that be in their school or taken part in a petition or gone on a march with loved ones. They are fundamentally engaged. How amazing, right? These are like the people that were in the 60s that said they were engaged, but really they weren't. These are the boomers. These aren't those ones. These are the ones that really, really are engaged. And then you add to it, though, that they have a problem with trust. So we are not yet tracking alpha, but this slide shows you, probably the most important slide of the day, that trust is dropping. And it's dropping by generation, by generation, by generation. And all the early intel says it's going to be even worse for alpha. So if you're starting to form a bit of a pattern now, you've got a group of individuals that are slightly off the grid and have a high need state, potentially, not all of them, but some of them, and they don't trust the establishment. So we've got to do something to change that. One final thing I just wanted to talk about when we talk about their need state. Life is starting later. It's a really sort of quite important bit of a slide here, because what is it doing? These 3 sort of benchmarks show you that the chances of them leaving home, really sorry millennials, just want to put that out there, is growing, and it's now going from sort of 21 to 24, so they're staying at home longer. They're taking time, and that still continues to increase about when they have a baby. That's been happening with every generation. It's getting later. And they are getting married later, if at all. So this is the line that is just growing out of Generation Z and continuing to grow. But it does mean that for the state, this is quite an interesting set of stats, because if you then drill it down to what's happened to the Zs before them, you can see on this slide that this is how, we got this from the gov.uk polling, you can see that their trust in government and how they interact with government services, the worst performing category is our 18 to 24-year-olds. And all our early indicators say it's going to be worse unless we do something for the generation before. So this complex picture says our needs might be important, but we're not sure we want to come to you for them, which might, is a worry. And then when you think about how they complete things, these are a generation that don't fill in forms. They don't use websites, generally. They've been brought up in a really different environment. You all heard before about their social media presence. And so you've got a set of individuals who are now thinking about how they interact. And if you think about that from a government perspective, they are learning new skills. So although they're digitally native, when you tell them to fill in a DVLA form to get a driving license, they need a responsible adults to help them fill it in. And I tell you, I do understand I am being incredibly reductive. There are so many people not doing that. But the percentages are high of people who need an intervention. And that isn't their fault, because there is a quicker way to get a driving license than to fill in a form, right? So it might turn out that they're completely right. So we need to bear that in mind when we talk about them. Okay, so just going to hear again from our ALFs. I think we've got one more thing from them, and they're going to talk to us about what their expectations are of government. And so let's just see what they have to say about it.
Teenagers today need more mental health support, both in schools and outside of them. I think schools should focus on more on life skills, not just exams.
Can we actually learn things that matter? Like mental health, financial literacy, and real-world skills.
Those topics are not talked about enough, such as general life skills, taxes, bills, how to buy a house, credit score.
I'd request for a free gym membership for people under the ages of 18. It can help with mental health. It's very addictive and it's so good for you. By giving these free memberships, you're investing into the future of the world. I'm in the gym 5 days a week. Since I've joined, I've helped with sleep. I just feel better. It's really a no-brainer. It's just not everyone can afford to be paying 20, 30 quid a month.
Life for teenagers, it's way more difficult for them to survive and thrive than it was for teenagers and young adults like 40 years ago, because everything's just so much more expensive. It's like, oh my god, there's people everywhere, so there's no jobs. It would be nice if there was more jobs available. Also, if stuff was cheaper, that would make stuff so much easier.
We are the future. I mean, the government can try and change as much as they want, but we are the ones who will walk into what they leave us with. You want to help the people that you're leaving this country with.
How beautifully put. Absolutely, how beautifully put. I mean, these are such a great set of folk, aren't they? They are inspiring in the way they think about stuff. They are considered in the way they think about stuff. Okay, right. So, how do you bring this all together? Our ALFs need to vote, right? We need to hear their voices. There's been some great research done recently which looks at voting. And if you just look at the slide for a moment above here, what you can see is they just need it to be easier. So you've got this element of trust, and then you add to it that we're making it hard for them to do it. You put the two together, and you've got this melting pot of not being able to get through the problem. We can do something about that. That's positive. We can make the change. So, just going to bring this all together as we talk about where we've been. We've looked at their experience, we've thought about their placement, their context, and they've had a rough ride, actually. They've had a rough ride. Right? It turned out the generation that could do everything digitally is spending a lot of time doing a lot of things digitally, but some of that means that they're not fundamentally interacting with everything else that the society can bring them. Again, an overarching statement, but still one that we should look for. And what we can see here is we're starting to see that their needs of government are starting to change. And we need to do something about that. We need to be ready for them. And so you end up in this situation where you've got a set of individuals who are trying to make it work for them, and we're making it even harder. And so why would the person who's one of the members of the leadership team in GDS stand on the stage and talk about ALF? Well, I'll go back to the beginning of this conversation. That's what we do for a living. We have to know where our users are. And it turns out we know nothing about ALF. It turns out a few people know a few things, but government itself doesn't know enough. It turns out they don't in most countries know enough about what's coming. I think there's a sort of perception that it'll just be a little bit like Z, but a little bit different, or Z. But it won't be. It feels like there's been a structural change and there's a difference. But we need to do something about that. So I just want to sort of take our place in this for a moment and say, what can the people in this room, the people in my team, many of you are here today, what can we do to try and change it? And I just want to touch on a couple of things. So in GDS, we're going to do 3 things in the course of this year. The first thing we're going to do is start thinking about research. And so we started to think about fundamentally how we can understand this user group. And we can't do that on our own. We can only do that with the rest of government. And for any from the international arena here today, we need you too. And we've started some of that work. We've done some work in the last few weeks and months, which has started to think about this community and their needs. And we'll share that with everybody as it moves through. The first thing on the first one as well, actually, when we think about research, just to go back one, we are also going to do some work with with academia. So we're going to make sure that we do this absolutely sort of cutting-edge research in partnership with academia. And so you'll hear from us shortly in the coming weeks about how we think we could do that. And again, if you're in a UK or international context, please reach out. The second thing we're doing is thinking about, can we change the relationship now? Do we need to wait? So fundamentally, can we do something now? So we're starting to think about how we can move our current suites of products and services and think about them in a much more collegiate, connected way. And what we're not doing is telling them that they need to behave differently. We're pointing the camera at us and saying we need to behave differently. So we're starting now to, for the first time, I think long about how we develop this long-term, lifelong relationship with this group. So one of the things we're looking at for next year is that when this group turns 17, how do they interact with the state? The time when they get their driving license, their national insurance number, the first time that they have to register, whether that be for a student loan or to leave the care system. When life hits them between the eyes, what can we do to pick them up at that real time of need? And we're working closely with education at the moment to think about how we can be there as they turn 17. We're then starting to think about their interactions, and we're starting to think about how we can think about them in the context of the products that they need for the future, not convincing them that they just need to learn how to use a website, because it ain't going to wash. Okay, so we'll talk about a couple of things that we think we'll do in the next year or so, but I think ALF might have the answer.
Phone.
My phone and my charger, definitely.
My phone.
My phone.
My phone.
Definitely my phone.
Phone.
My phone.
Most teenagers would really struggle with that phone. I know I definitely would.
Okay, so they've told us it. They want it on a phone, right? So no spoilers. We can say we're going to do something else, but they want it on the phone. So one of the things we're doing at GDS at the moment is thinking about that interaction. So in June this year, you'll have already seen our Secretary of State probably talk about this, but we're starting to think about this user, this set of folk using our already known position of gov.uk and how they will use that in their daily lives. We're starting to think about how they will use it with wallets, technology, interaction, how they'll use it in the future to go and buy beer in a pub, how they'll use it to make sure that they're safe instead of taking their passport out. We're starting to really think about how we can be there as a positive reflection of how you interact with society, as opposed to a negative reaction where it's just too hard to navigate. And today they told us about interaction, right? They like conversations. Their world is conversational, and we need to think about that. So when we think about something like AI, we're doing that in the context of looking at the interactive patterns that feel right for them, not navigating old systems such as web, but starting to think about the interaction, conversational interaction that will drive their ideas going forward. And who knew? Now, all of you probably have thought about your social media campaigns. You probably all have social media campaigns already. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're starting to think about meeting them where they are at the time of need in a way that speaks to them, where the brand speaks to them and you're not teaching them and making them frightened, where you're talking in their language, the best of what your GDS does already, but doing it in the place where they spend their time. Okay. And the final thing we're doing is we're doing this conference, right? The reason I've spent the last half an hour, 35 minutes on this stage is fundamentally this isn't a GDS problem. I think what we've done is sort of shine the light that there's a problem coming, but we absolutely need to do that in partnership with the rest of government. And so we totally believe that the time to do the action is now. So my question to people in the room is that anybody who wants to get involved, we need you. We absolutely need you. So our 3-point plan, I sound like a politician, is to do the research. That means we understand this cohort completely. Because you've touched on it today, but it is only light touch, and we've got so much more to do. Our 2nd-point plan is that we're going to actually start building some products now that we think they'll want to use and they can interact with, and we're not putting it off. And as I said right at the beginning, the fact that they're doing that now means they'll probably bring their mums and dads and sisters and brothers with them. And the 3rd thing is we're fundamentally thinking how we do that together as one organisation, as one government. And that 3rd one is actually the most important part of today's talk. So, you came into this room today, you probably knew some of these things already, but I don't think you knew all of it. And if you're anything like me, when you sort of went through this research for the first time, you probably thought, I need to know more. I don't know this. I've got more questions than I have answers. You probably thought, actually, that's fine, but I don't fundamentally know what to do about it. And I hope this leaves you in a position where you're thinking, this cohort is coming. They're coming over the hill. There's millions of them. They really need us. Like, they really, really need us. And that's what we're all in the room for here today. And they need us soon. And they are expecting more from us. They're expecting more than we are giving. But we can make a massive difference. Digital is part of the solution, right? It's a really big part. There'll be other things we need to think about their interaction, but digital can be one of those things. So, we've got a little thing to finish on, which is our project thing. So if you want to take a picture of it and you want to get involved, that's you. Get in touch. There is a team on standby waiting to get your call. Maybe not this afternoon, but in the next couple of days. But all I wanted to do today is make sure we had a moment of reflection. My final comment would be that at GDS, we pride ourselves in knowing who our users are, and we've missed this. And if we've missed it, I imagine quite a few other people have missed it too. But there's something we can do about it, but we need to take action now. Right, that's me done. I've done all my slides. You've listened to ALF. You'll be saying it when you go home tonight. I am going to bring the house lights up now, if it's okay. And we're going to bring it to close. But if anyone's got any burning questions, feel free to put your hand up. And there are some roving mics coming your way. Also, feel free to go and get a cup of tea. Hi. Hello. Oh, is the mic coming? Is someone running fast? Yes, it is. There you go. Fabulous. Go for it.
Hiya.
Hello.
Yeah, question really. I'm a work coach at a job centre in South Manchester, and all of this really ties in.
Yeah.
What is being done to assist our under 25 sort of age group? Because at the moment there seems to be a real disconnect between what it is that we're asking them to do, in terms of what we're expecting from them in terms of attendance and so on and so forth. Their whole worldview, you presented it really well today, is that it's completely disconnected with what it is that we're asking. And because of that situation, potentially they could be getting sanctioned because of a lack of engagement. Not because they don't want to, but because they can't see the value. So I suppose the question with that is, what can be done?
I think it's a great question, right? And I actually am not even going to try and answer it. I think what you're doing beautifully is you're amplifying probably the message. I think sometimes you come to presentations, don't you? You think everyone's going to give you the answers. I think the good thing about this is we might have caught it and we might be a bit late, but we need to think of it as a full sort of 360 approach. You know, the people in GDS can think about digital channels. We need to think about the whole 360 of this generation. I think it's a fabulous question, and if you don't answer that email, shame on you, right? So I'm expecting you to do that. Thank you so much for your question. Has anyone got anything else? We'll just take it over here. Go for it. Yeah, shout. Oh, amazing. Right. Yeah.
I just have a concern that the way, because she's autistic, the way she views the world is different from her peers. Will she be left behind because we're going to concentrate our views on certain people? So as you said, 14% ascend, and she had half her life in COVID, which was challenging for her. So how do you think we can support that 14% of send and those people who do view the world differently than the other people?
I think it's a really good one. I think I'll broaden it out, but I think it'll cover your question. I think it's a false thing that if we don't sort out the sort of, I don't know, 60, 70% that can get what they want from the state quickly, and make it easy for them, it's not helpful if we don't do that, right? So what I mean is, just by not doing it for everybody doesn't make it better. So we've got to make sure that anybody who wants to do this in a really quick, self-serve way, they've got the best-in-class services to do it. Because then we've got more time to spend on people that really need it. But that is about, again, a sort of full strategy to how we think. You know, if we were thinking about it from a channel strategy point of view, you think about how people got what they needed from the state. I think you only do it if you actually make some of the other bit easier. So it's not quite answered your question, but I think what it is doing is saying, get this bit working, make this possible, and then it leaves more time for real, proper intervention and care. And sometimes we blur that by saying, well, we've got to do it for everybody. Of course we have to do it for everybody, but everyone doesn't need the same thing. And I think these departments need to come together in a sort of real, proper coalition way to think about how we solve those needs. It's wonderful in GDS to be talking to the education teams at the moment, because the answer between the two of us is sometimes we get to a better conclusion by being together. But absolutely, I think that's the space we need to get into soon. I think there's one over here. And then
Thank you. It was a really interesting presentation. I just wanted to go back to where you started, because of course you're right that services need to be provided differently, but one of the things your group also spoke a lot about is mental health. And a lot of the research suggests that the reason why younger people have higher mental health issues is because of their connection to their phones. So I also just wonder whether we should be thinking more about that, and whether we want the generation that follows to have that tight connectivity, because I think we've learned a lot from this generation. And I say that as the parent of 2 kids.
No, I understand. I think I stand up here as a civil servant leading the sort of digital transformation services. I think that question for government, you know, I'm talking as Chris Bellamy, not in my day job, that is the wider piece. What do we want our society to be like? And I think that's that's not a question for me to answer on this stage, but it doesn't mean you can't save anything, and you can take a negative into a positive. The facts are the facts, though, aren't they, right? So what we can do with that, my view on our day job is, if we can make the interactions as quickly as possible, that is getting people off their phones and meaning they have a better relationship with the state. So, but I think your broader question is right. It's fundamentally, and then some of the countries are thinking about that in different ways. And it's a really good point. Right, I'm conscious of your time. I'm going to take one more question and I'm going to let you all go and get cups of tea and coffee because you've had a big old day, haven't you? Hello. I've got two. I'll do both of you. So we'll come here and then we'll come to you. Is that because a mic can go over? Fabulous.
Thanks
Hello.
very much. So I was really interested in kind of the intergenerational aspect of things. And I did kind of smile at times because there's always been a generation of, they've had it different before. I know my mum talked about people who had the rations in the war and kind of the difference between that and the 1960s. Some of this made me smile. I was just thinking, trying not to have a degree of animosity towards these generations coming up. How do you think, bearing in mind that we as government are going to need to be smaller, more agile, that we aren't just this sort of one-stop shop and then trying to get everyone's needs met? How do you kind of balance that personalisation, that degree of added support, when at one end you've got a generation who can barely print a PDF and the other who are just expecting everything on their phone? Yeah.
Well, I can answer that as someone who's spent most of their working lives trying to make it better for people to work with digital products, right? So, and it doesn't solve everything. So everything we do, in my opinion, even in the product world, it needs to have a personal route that is nothing to do with digital. I think that's in that, if you're a product manager, you should think about all routes. So, but I do think this is about adoption at scale, and if it's a good service that's used well, it does become quite universal. So if you think in your day job about things that everybody uses for every generation, it's not just because they're marketed, it's because they just work really, really well. The reason people for years use Google search and probably are now using it less is because it just works universally. The reason why you can see audiences using something like Instagram at scale is because it's so easy and straightforward to use. I think losing the barriers brings up the water level for everybody. And so I think there is less bespoke stuff than you think. I think there are some definite user cases that are completely bespoke. But if you take a good example, if you're trying to find out who you are and you're 17 and you need to get help with something, or you're 85 and you need to do a power of attorney, actually the thing that needs to happen is the same. You need to be able to make somebody do something, help someone do it for you. You need to give them authorization to do it. They need to be able to sign on your behalf, and we all need to move away from here and go and do something else. And so actually the tech you build for that is the same tech. It's just you've got a different need state that they're trying to do. Because what you're trying to do fundamentally is just take away all the friction. And so I do think there is a way where you can think about an 80-year-old and a 14-year-old, because there's many digital products that do that, and government needs to sort of think like that, would be my view. And my final question, I'm going to let you all go.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Abby.
Hello, Abby.
And I'm proud to say I'm a Gen Z in the room today. I joined government when I was 19.
Wow.
And I'm 25 now. But one of the things that I always note is there's not many people like me in government, especially in roles where they're decision makers.
Yeah.
So I was wondering what's going to be done to bring more, Gen Z, Gen ALF people into government, into entry-level roles, so that they can become decision makers.
It's such a great question, Mike. I'm going to answer it just from the perspective I know it's a right question, because without you, we can't make. If I take the product route, great products are made by the people that you want to use them. Otherwise, you just make really bad products. So we need those people in the room to make them. At GDS, we're just about to start an apprenticeship program, which is fundamentally thinking about school leavers at 18 that are going to come to us and help us shape our product direction going forward. And we're going to do some work on that in Manchester in the next few months. But there just needs to be more of that, would be my opinion. I can do it in our bit of the forest, but the minute you start to think about it in that way, that will be transformational, because you'll just start building different things, and they'll have better outcomes. I think just to finish, right, just one thing I'd say to you. You've not come to a session today and got all the answers, and probably you don't agree with all of it. And I think that's all right, actually. I think the most important thing is that you turned up and that when you go away, you'll notice this and you'll see it and you'll think, if you're running services, you'll spot it. And in a couple of years' time, if you do nothing, you'll definitely spot it. And I would hope that many of you reach out, because I think if we do get a good set of folk across government working on this, we're going to do something quite brilliant. We're going to actually think about what comes next. At one level, this is about the transformation of digital services for government. At another level, it's fundamentally thinking about the generation that's about to come and see us. And if we get both of those things right, oh my God, we've nailed it. So thank you so much for your time. It's been ace to see you all. And if you're about in the conference the next 2 days, it'd be lovely to spend some time with you. Thanks for your time.